Hi there, everyone, and we're live. Welcome, product community, to yet another live stream by product people. This is a new format that we're trying and essentially starting. You might be familiar that we do these on Tuesdays with product leaders across the board, and on Thursdays we're starting a new format, which essentially is called Mission Possible. And the idea behind Mission Possible is that we would like to showcase some of our personal case studies, our experience working with different projects on different clients, and tell you about our learning and our experiences, and hopefully something that you can take out of this, right? So, yeah, today what we're going to be talking about in the first episode is about design systems, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about these in just a second. Before we go there, a little bit about myself. My name is Hassan. I'm a lead product management consultant at Product People. I have a little bit over 8 years of experience in product, working across many different B2C and B2B industries. And some of these names include One Football, Back Market, the one I'm going to be talking about today, um, JetBrains, ebook, and some others as well. What about product people? So, our mission is to help companies discover and deliver great products faster. We empower our product management community to share knowledge generously while managing all the glamorous hands on work of a product manager, product owner, or even a product leader on an interim basis. And we do this by onboarding fast, aligning teams, and delivering great outcomes. We have about 40 or so product management consultants in house that serve on an interim basis, and a community of over 60,000 members that you as well are part of right now. And with that, I'm going to jump straight into talking about design systems. So before we even go into anything about the project, right? If you've ever argued about which shade of blue, or shade of blue to use, then you know why design systems matter, right? So you're looking at essentially different shades of the same color. You might be using this color within your product development process between design, engineering, and as you scale, you're thinking about how do you ensure consistency? How do you ensure you don't lose a lot of time arguing about shades of blue? Design systems are essentially a set of guidelines, components, standards. They all come together and they provide a shared language, right, for you to manage design at scale. The idea is that they provide coherence in digital product design and development. So think about design, engineering, just the handoff, just the way they interact, just the way that your product, when it becomes a team of over 40 product squads, how does it scale and remain consistent and ensure optimal efficiency in the product development process, right? So this is an example of a design system that's very much public, and this is material design by Google. You can see and essentially Google it and learn a bit more about what they offer. There's colors, these are essentially branding related tokens, is what we call them, the smallest unit of within a design system, right? There's a little bit about components. Components can be a button, for example, a sidebar, right? Or any element on a website or an app that is interactive and you use, right, to build up your interface. There could be typography, there could be shapes, assets, a bunch of these things between branding and between design when it comes to UI and UX that come together to form a design system. Now, material design is one example. Similarly, there's many public design systems, and then there's design systems that are private to a company. Let's say you're working at a company, they could have their very own design system. This can be quite small, which is just managed between designers and engineers, or it could be a squad on its own, a team on its own, or a product that's internal and used to serve other teams, right? There's a commercial argument as to why design systems matter, right? And there is this interesting article by this wonderful person called Mike Fortuna, who calculated a business case, an example of that. And essentially, there is a cost to doing anything when it comes to product development, right? So if we think about it in very simple terms here, you could have a cost of building a button, right? So maybe the initial design and development, assuming 100 euros per hour, and you put in 20 hours, right, is about 2,000 euros. There is some cost of revising and testing and maintaining this as well, right? And we're putting that about at roughly 10 and 5 hours. Um, as an assumption. This comes down to, let's say, 3,500 euros to build one single button, right? Now, imagine without a design system, and you were working on 50 different projects, each of them have a button that they are preparing or building and maintaining. This could take it up to easily 175,000 euros in cost just for building buttons. Now, with the design system, assuming you're able to centralize the button and agree that, hey, this is a button that we're going to be using across the board, this is the color, this is the interactions, the states that it comes with, maybe it's disabled, maybe it's enabled, the radius, the border, the size, all of the different elements that go onto the UI. If you're able to maintain that, you're just saving yourself a lot of cost of rebuilding the same button in different dimensions and different requirements, right? And this could bring your cost down to 13,000 euros for the project. And that already shows you how much room there is to optimize for the interactions that we have at scale when it comes to using design systems. Let me tell you about the project. So, Back Market is an online marketplace for refurbished technology, and they have a mission to reduce electronic waste and they encourage people to think about their technology consumption. Back Market is very much established in Europe and across the world as well. They have a mobile app, they have a website, they're in e-commerce, right? So they have a lot of scopes within their product on each of their sites to maintain, and a lot of buttons that they may be building as well, right? So we essentially joined Back Market as design system product managers. And what we were up against was essentially that the design system squad was within the platform team, and it consisted of product designers and web engineers. Sorry about that. However, it lacked product leadership, right? So this squad was formed, but there was no product manager to sort of provide the priorities. Give me 1 second. Yeah. A little bit sick, but hanging in there. So this squad had multiple transversal communications happening, as any internal product platform squad would, right? So we were meant to be serving 30 plus other squads in the company, and they were all coming to us going like, hey, we need a button, just as an example. They were our users, and a lot of this needed to be managed by a PM that could handle these comms and centralize them so that designers and engineers can actually focus on building the button, right? And centralizing it and socializing it. There were also a lack of efficient processes and also a strategic vision. Really, where does the design system go? How does it fit into the bigger picture here? And also, how do we ensure efficient processes to allow our users to come to us, understand what we want to do? So documentation was a big part. Contributions were a big part, right? So imagine someone wants to go like, hey, here's a button we recommend building. How does that work, and how does that become part of the design system, right? And that's where we came in and we jumped into the picture. So we started off and explored the problem space through a series of workshops, and these workshops were essentially conducted with a number of the squad members, the designers, the engineers, the stakeholders that were involved, right? Some members of the users of the design system, and we identified two key areas that I think short term we needed to solve, right? So one was the lack of evangelization. There was a design system, it existed. However, adoption was not as high as it should have been. This also affected squad morale because essentially they were working on something that was not being used. The second one was ways of working. There were lack of clear objectives and also vision and also a roadmap. And this meant direction was not clear. So every time someone came to us like, hey, let's build a button, it would sort of just take over everything else that the team was working on, and resulting in a situation where we were distracted and we were not working on things that were having the highest impact, right? So there was a need to be able to resolve some of these challenges, and that's where we jumped in and tried to help out. So what did we do about the first situation? The lack of evangelization. Again, we wanted to make sure that a design system that we work on is adopted. And I think that is incredibly important for an internal platform like product, right? You cannot be building something that nobody uses or nobody's aware of. There's, of course, a functionality aspect to it, which means that the product should be usable, it should be interesting, it should be solving a need. But then there's also a marketing and evangelization aspect. Are the users aware that this is going to be solving their need, right? And that's where the aspect of really socializing your work comes in. So we started off by doing a little bit of vision workshops with the team, right? So we really wanted to get everyone into the drawing board, think about the values of the organization, the work that we're doing. How does that fit into the bigger picture and the bigger strategy? How does our work become relevant for everyone else in the company? And how does it push the company goals, right? So a lot of that was really just reflecting together, putting a storyline to it, making it clear what the vision is going to be for this squad, and that helped, at least internally, get everyone excited and aligned on the direction that the design system was going to be heading in. And then we jumped in and did some presentations, some strategic presentations, where we took this vision, this direction, and we went across the company working with product design engineering teams to increase awareness of the design system. We're like, hey, here's what we're working on. Here's why it's valuable. Here's how many users we have, how many contributions we have, the libraries that exist, the documents that exist. Here's how you can use it, right? Of course, some members already were aware of this and were using it, others not so much. And they started to see just the value of what could potentially be the design system in the company, right? And a bunch of this was also top down, right? So we had a leadership that believed in design-led innovation and the value of product development and being efficient, and that helped convey that message to the rest of the organization that, hey, the work that this squad is doing is important, it's valuable, right? And that's kudos to back market, of course, for setting a culture up like that. The way we measured whether our effort there was successful was a survey with the rest of our audience, right? So we conducted a detailed survey, which essentially tried to talk about awareness of the design system, usage, satisfaction, and we built up on an existing survey that was sent out last year, the year before we joined, and tried to gauge from the users, who are mainly designers and engineers and product managers, whether awareness of the design system existed and whether it was useful for them in any way. We received an increase in participation on this survey, so about 24% compared to the previous year. And out of those people who participated, almost 89% mentioned that they understood the design system's vision, the mission, as well as just its awareness, right, and its presence. And that already showed us that, hey, we were headed in the right direction, and that now that people are starting to be aware of what we're going to be working on, that is a start. And then we started to think about ways of working, right? Mainly within the team, but also with the members of the company that were using the design system, right? So our users. Remember that a design system is a product for building products. So it's an internal product. And it's very important that you consider it a product that is allowing operations to be streamlined, and it's able to be functional, usable, and solves a real problem internally. So we had a lack of clear objectives. We had vision that was, sorted in the previous slide that I just mentioned, and we needed a roadmap as well. So one of the first things that we did was we jumped in and tried to clean up our Jira backlog. Naturally, being a platform team meant that we had a lot of requests coming in, a lot of outdated requests, maybe duplicate requests, right? So we needed a centralized way to be able to manage those, as opposed to just someone quickly creating a ticket in our backlog. So we did a bunch of activities with the team where we defined a prioritization framework, which is different levels. We had 5 levels, and we categorized tasks into contributions, contributions from another team, someone that says, hey, I want to build a button for you, or maybe internal tasks that we want to do as a team, right? And bugs and so on and so forth. So once that was clear, we were aware of really what we're up against, and we wanted to start working on the right topics to sort of have a better impact. While doing that, we also switched up gears and went away from using Kanban to Scrum. We were like, all right, I think this will be a bit more focused for the team. We will have clear goals, velocity that we can track, and as well as regular achievements through retros and show and tell meetings and whatnot, right? So the team decided that we're going to try and move towards Scrum. We set that up, and we essentially ran ahead with this. The support portal is the third one. That's the one that came in to essentially prevent the problem of people creating tickets in our backlog. So support portal on Jira and a Jira service management project is simply a project style, which is a project type that allows you to enable a portal that collects or allows you to create requests, bugs, or questions in a more service oriented manner, right? So what we did was we streamlined this project, we connected it to our public Slack channel where teams could come and be like, hey, I have a question, and we had emoji reactions to create tickets to track that question, and then someone who would be a support hero from our team, someone dedicated to handling support that week, would jump in and be like, all right, here's how I can answer your question. Here's a document. Here's some other links that would be relevant to you. Here's past examples. And that made it much easier for the rest of the team to focus on their work, while this one support hero has a centralized way to manage support related tasks for internal requests. And this was super important because, one, yes, it prevented distractions for the team, but also streamlined and ensured a more efficient process, right? So whenever there was a handoff between two support heroes, it was much clearer where the documents were in place in the tickets, right? Where the history was there, and we could easily track any of the high priority issues that were open, or any lower ones. There were SLAs, right? It allows us to think in a bit more of a data-driven manner, which helped the team a lot. Number four, we essentially used automation as a principle when it comes to rethinking our ways of working, right? Being a platform team that's trying to solve for internal needs, it was super important that we're efficient. Our operations had to be streamlined, and we leveraged a lot of automations on Slack and Jira here, and in particular, specifically four that we were able to use for our use case. And this involved automated ticket creation, conversions when it comes to tickets if they were, irrelevant, bulk updates. In some cases, for example, if you create a button, you need to update it across multiple different sources of truth. This was for design, for web, for app, right? And for documentation. So we needed multiple tickets to ensure the right people do this work, and we used automations for that. We estimated that this saved around 14 hours for us on a monthly basis, which we thought was a great win given the team's challenge with being more efficient, right? And then the last thing that we worked on was a contribution model with the team. Essentially, the idea was that there should be a clear understanding for our users to know how to contribute to the design system, right? Design system is a living system. It's not maintained just by one team. Essentially, we need to create a way for other teams to contribute to it to essentially allow it to scale, right? So there was a clear process that reduced friction when it comes to other squads that can work on their scopes and go like, hey, we want this component that we worked on to be part of the design system. So we would think about many different things like, hey, is this reusable? Is this accessible? Is this maintainable? And all of these elements, there was a process in place, well documented, that we worked on, which allowed us to avoid having meetings about it or manual chats about it. And it was clear how to follow the process to contribute to the design system. One of our side quests was also accessibility. We were working on this to ensure that the design system, at the very core of ensuring that we build accessible experiences, was taken into account, right? So accessibility is very much about ensuring that differently abled people are able to use your products in the same way. They're not essentially, let out of the community of users that you have. And this could involve very much something simple as colors that you use, the color combination, right? It could be whether you have alt text on your buttons, allowing for some screen reader to go through it and help someone who's not able to see as well, right? So design systems, knowing that they are the foundation of any web interface or an app interface, give you an advantage to leapfrogging your accessibility metrics, right? So if your button is accessible, then all of the buttons across your website, if they use the design system, are going to be accessible. So what we did is we started off with an audit with an external agency to look at our platforms, identify all of the improvements that needed to be done on the interfaces, and then we essentially prioritized these improvements. So we started to look at the backlog and be like, all right, these are the areas, these are the severe ones, the ones that are really blocking some users from completing some actions on the website or maybe purchasing a mobile phone, right? And then we delegated those within our team and other teams to be like, all right, let's look into this, let's make this a part of our sprints. And then at the same time, we did a comprehensive training, which was led by the design system squad, which essentially said that, hey, this is what accessibility is and how you should keep it into mind when you do design and development to ensure that our work is inclusive. So the idea was that, hey, we don't just fix the problems that we're coming up with, but rather we build a culture of accessibility that every designer and every engineer is able to think about this when they're working on product development. In short, this is a little bit about what we ended up doing. So there was a lot about building awareness and buy-in and socializing the design system, the workshops, the presentations, and then there was a little bit about streamlining operations. So the goal here was very much that we're going to be able to help this squad become much of a relevant squad in the company and contribute to the company goals, and that's how we ended up doing this. Some of the results that we delivered, so the vision that we worked on and how we evangelized the design system resulted in about 89% of participants mentioning that they were aware of the design system and its goals. We moved away from Kanban to Scrum, cleaned our backlog of over 500 tickets, and now we were able to work in a bit more of an efficient manner. We also implemented automation across Jira and Slack, which freed up around 14 hours of manual effort and contributed directly to the autopilot objective of the company. So that's a little bit about our journey working at Back Market within design systems. I hope this was useful for you, and I am very much open to questions at this point. And there's a QR code on the slide here that you can scan and drop some of your feedback, as well as share your questions with us on the chat in the respective platform that you are on. And I'll wait for a second to see how many questions come. And then we can jump in. All right, I see a few questions coming in. So I'll read them out and I'll also answer them while I'm on here. So you mentioned running workshops to uncover pain points. What did those workshops look like in practice? How did you make sure people shared honest feedback? It's a very good question. The workshops were conducted on FigJam or Miro is an equivalent, so you can use either of those. The idea was very much to create a safe space for the participants, which involves some stakeholders, some of the team members, and tell them, look, we're just going to reflect on what's been done so far. So what we did as product managers, we brought we did the facilitation. We brought some examples of vision statements and missions from other design systems, from other companies, some adjacent companies as well, right? So just to get inspiration, we introduced what a vision statement is supposed to be, what its goals are, and essentially then we did a collaborative exercise. We're like, okay, what keywords do you think of when you think of a design system at Back Market? And then based on those keywords, we did another exercise. All right, how would you socialize the vision in your own words? So everyone, kind of put down their own statements. And then we did a couple more activities like that and sort of took that back and, made a proposal based on the learnings. The way we ensured people shared honest feedback was honestly through building trust. So part of what we do at Product People when we onboard, we don't essentially come in and try to break things, right? We try to understand first and empathize with the history. So what happened in the past, right? How did you get here? How can we build trust to tell you that we're here to support you, to essentially solve for your needs, right? And we're not here to step on any toes or try and essentially change anything that was worked on. So we essentially spent a week before that trying to just gain that trust and set that context, which allowed the audience to understand that, all right, these interim product managers here are trying to take the step in the right direction. They're trying to essentially reflect on how to make the company move in the right direction, and that helped with people opening up and sharing honest feedback as well. I hope that answers the question. I see another one. So, which of these changes do you think had the biggest long term impact for the client? I think if you think about it, what we ended up doing was building the foundations for a design system squad to thrive, right? So all of the founding blocks, the platform blocks for the team to think about how they manage support related topics, how they manage ways of working with the Jira and the Scrum and the backlog, and even how people contribute, right? So I think personally, I was a big fan of just helping rethink from a product perspective the service management, the support side of things, and that also involved the contribution model. Just being able to facilitate that, ensure that a number of hours were optimized, and as well as see that the team considered this a positive contribution was, in my opinion, very impactful long term, and I'm hopeful that it is still being used and it's valuable for the company in many ways. And I see another question. So, what advice would you give to another company struggling to get their design system adopted? I think it's also important here to reflect on the fact that not every company needs a design system that would be as comprehensive or as scalable or as big of a squad as Back Market did. So Back Market had about 40 or so squads almost, I think, that were, contributing to product development. Therefore, it was important that there was a design system in place. But another company may not need that much, right? They could have a small library and that could also very much do the job. But I think the most important thing to get it adopted is to think about it like any other product, right? What are your users looking for? What are their needs? What are the jobs to be done that you're looking at? The opportunity space, right? Once you understand that, you're able to take back and work backwards into really what is your strategy, right? Is your design system solving for that need? If yes, then okay, what is the problem? If the design system is not as marketed well or as evangelized, right? How do we get that to happen? So in our case, for example, the design system was solving for a need, but it wasn't, the awareness was not there, right? So people didn't know the value that we were providing, so making your value clear through either internal updates, being very much part of um, you know product related meetups, or like all hands, or like socializing the work you're doing, making sure that your teams are giving you shout outs for when you work with them, right? All of those things help with increasing adoptions as well. And I see another question here. How are you balancing new component requests from product teams versus scaling adoption of what already exists? So new component requests versus scaling adoption of what already exists in the system. That's also a very good question. So we essentially had, in the early years of the design system, was much more about building the foundational components, very much about making sure, it's this effort of migrating, what's on the website, on the app, and getting all of the um, fundamental essentially components in place, right? And then the new requests were very much about looking at it on a case by case basis. So we had our priorities clear in the sense that this is our vision, this is what we're contributing to, and every time a new request would come, we would use that to essentially arbitrage our work, right? So if the new component contributes to, let's say, an impact for the company that is X amount versus another one that's much lower, when it comes to maintaining an existing one, that would be an easier way to prioritize. If not, then there would be options. Be like, okay, we can't do this component now, but you can, for example, contribute by building it yourself and then making it a part of our system. And here's the guidelines that you would follow. So the idea was that we also did not want to become a blocker. So we were working on certain things, we were helping build certain components and other things. But if for any reason our team did not have the capacity to support, another team should not have to suffer or lose time. So there was a clear method for how they could unblock themselves, build it, and then make it a part of the system. So that was essentially the culture and the process that we put in place when it comes to balancing the two. All right, I think I see a comment. I've tried documenting design decisions better, but it's still tricky to say no when teams want to move fast. I think this goes back to my the last answer I gave, right? we also seem to face the same problem, right? Everyone was like, we want to go fast, 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 and the only way we can do it is by bypassing the design system. So we're just going to build it on our own, right? And partially, I understand that as well. And I think we were also proponents of the idea that sometimes it's okay to go fast, bypass the design system, but please come back and let's make this improvement in the future, right? Just the way we think of technical debt. Sometimes we do break or maybe write not the best code, but knowing that you need to improve this sometime later, right? The same way this is sort of like design debt, right? Or any other debt. So that bit, and then also making a culture of like, hey, you can contribute even if our team is not there. Here's how you do it. The value, just being able to be clear that, it'll take you one more week to contribute to the design system, but here's how much more valuable it is for the company, let's say. And we noticed a bit of a trend where people had this bias thinking our design system means slow. And when we were able to evangelize, just how we're trying to be efficient and how you can be efficient and how you can be faster, we started to see a bit more collaborative work from the teams that went like, okay, we can try to, make a compromise here, slow down a little bit, but, in the greater scheme of things, it'll work out. And yeah, so that balance is a little bit about socializing the work you're doing. It's a little bit about, not being very strict on being like, no way, a design system or no, nothing else. And also a little bit about making sure the right process is in place for teams to be empowered to contribute and help build the design system. All right, I think those are the questions we had for now. So that's a little bit about what we had to share about design systems. Let me tell you a little bit about product people before you head off here. We essentially cover a couple of use cases, which is around interim and fractional support. So this could be a product manager or product leader, either permanent positions we cover, parental leaves, or even urgent initiatives. We also offer coaching for your team when it comes to processes or even just coaching a PM or a product leader. And also, we at times help with product discovery, speeding things up, helping you find out what's the next big thing to work on, or even running a low code or no code pilot or an MVP. We don't What we don't do, where we essentially, like all great PMs, define a limit scope, but we are not recruiters, so we don't source candidates. We're not freelance marketplace either, so we essentially think about playing the long-term game with long-term people. Our team is full-time on our payroll, and essentially, um, you know, our team is goes through a very long recruitment process, and we try and coach them and help them become great product management consultants. And most importantly, we're not a software development agency, so all we do is product management. But if you need developers, designers, we potentially can connect you with some people in our network, but that's not a service that we offer. And some of our selected clients that we've worked with on the B2C side, eBay, Ventum, DeepL, some others on the screen that you see here, and similarly, a couple more on the B2B side as well that we are proud to have had a good experience working with. And we've supported over 690 plus cross-functional teams. These range from Series A startups to publicly listed companies. We have over 40 product leaders and managers in our team. And what we're proud of is that 59% of our team is also women, and 60% of those are in leadership. And we believe that truly informs the culture that we have at Product People. And that's it for now. For a final comment, QR code, some feedback. This is a new format we're trying. We're going to do it on a weekly basis, where on Thursdays at this time, we share a little bit more about our experience and case studies. Join in, tell us about what we can do better. Like any other PM, we love to get feedback and act on it. And this QR code will help you with that survey. With that being said, thank you all for joining. I am grateful that you did, and I wish everyone a great end to